that those of us on the autism spectrum face. So, getting into the science of sensory issues, what we have here is this is what happens in the brain. So if we consider what happened with, well, how many of you, after we did this exercise, you still felt kind of a buzz and a little bit unsettled? Because I know you did, and a number of you did. And what happened is, if we look at what happened neurologically, we see that all sensory information, except for smell, first enters the brain through the reticular activating system, so the RAS, which is a bundle of nerves on top of the brain. We can see the parts of the brain that are responsible for getting this information: the medulla, the pons beruli, and the midbrain. So here the information, it goes up and it gets sifted, and decisions are made as to whether a response is necessary and which information will be sent up higher or later for further processing. So when that happens, what we find, or part of the job of the central nervous system in the brain, is to sort and to sift. So what that means is that as we look at sensory input, most of it gets discarded. The brain is a sorting or a screening type of instrument, screening out most sensory input. And for those of us with sensory issues, and for what those of you experienced, especially those of you who got a little bit of a buzz that continued afterwards, not enough information was discarded. Not enough was discarded, and for those of us on the spectrum, or some of us on the spectrum, there's way too much information coming in, which is why you see people holding their ears, for example, because there's too much auditory information coming in. So you get about 25% left, and that goes to the thalamus and limbic system. And if it goes there, if the information represents danger, then you get the fear response from the HPA, hypothalamus pituitary adrenal system, or axis. And that is what gets you ready for a flight or fight. And that's what happened. Those of you who had a little bit of a buzz, you got this thing activated for fight or flight. So your heart rate goes up, breathing goes up, all these things occur, and this is what causes that reaction. Now, many people on the spectrum, we spend more time in this area, you might say, or in this state than other people. And what also happens when the fight or flight situation is activated, when the axis is activated, peripheral vision, that goes up too. We become more aware of what's happening because there could be lions or mammoths or something coming from the side, so we notice that. Our eyes become more sensitive to light in general. Touch becomes more sensitive. Anybody know individuals on the spectrum who have challenges with some of these senses? So it's that living in a state of fear that also can relate to these sensory issues. It exacerbates these sensory issues. When fear goes up, when anxiety goes up, processing and functioning goes down. Then, for information that's not threatening, for those of you who didn't have a buzz afterwards, then the information was perceived as non-threatening, and it was tagged for future processing by various areas of the brain. So this is what happens. This is what happens neurologically, and this is often stuff that you don't have conscious control over through biofeedback, through sensory integration therapy. Then we can gain a little bit more control over these things and find ways to work through them.